For those, good morning, good morning. For those who I have not met, I am Brett Andrews, the interim CEO here at All Home. And on behalf of All Home, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for being here. We are so very excited to share this important work with you today. Just by way of history, I thought I would share a little bit of how I came to know Tamika at All Home. I first met Tamika when she was heading Hamilton Families, and I was the CEO at PRC, a behavioral health organization in San Francisco. And we quickly recognized that we had so many shared clients and priorities. She quickly became a wonderful colleague, an incredible thought partner, and a dear friend. And then in 2019, when I founded the Black Leadership Council, which focuses on health, wealth, housing, and education, I immediately thought of Tamika to help lead that effort as the co-chair. And most recently, when Tamika was tapped to become Secretary Moss, she asked if I would step in on an interim basis and lead All Home, and I was so very honored to do so. I've been in the role since February, and I'm glad to be doing this work with an incredibly knowledgeable and passionate team, and of course, in partnership with you. I know most of you are familiar with All Home, but I wanted to briefly say a little bit about how we approach our work. We convene, we bring the region together at the intersection of housing and economic security, and the Regional Action and Impact Council is one very important way that we do that. We co-create, we design, test, and scale innovative solutions, such as the homelessness prevention program that we have helped roll out in a number of jurisdictions across the region. And we catalyze. We drive systems change by shifting funding, policy, and narratives. We certainly hope this updated regional action plan is a catalyst to do just that. Today, we will, one, hear from the few Regional Impact Council members and partners, and they will present a bit about the Regional Action Plan. Two, discuss the latest developments on the upcoming Regional Affordable Housing Bond. And three, discuss ways to support these efforts. We will hear from Ken Kirky, Chief Partnerships Officer at All Home, Adrian Gonzalez, Deputy Chief of Programs at All Home, Carla Javits, the Regional Impact Council Co-Chair and Senior Advisor at REDF, Napa County Supervisor, Belia Ramos, and Justine Marcus, Director of Policy at Enterprise Community Partners. But before we move on, I just wanted to do a bit of housekeeping to let everyone know there is a Q&A section in the end of the presentation. Please feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat throughout the presentation. Our colleague Edie Irons will be tracking them. And I just want to again thank you for your presence here today and for your support of our work over the years. And now I'd like to pass the presentation on to Ken Kirky to set the stage for the reconvening of the Regional Impact Council. Ken, please.
Thank you, Brett. Good morning, everyone. Very excited to reconvene the Regional Impact Council, aka the RIC. Many of you have been part of the RIC since our early days. We also invited a few dozen people to join the group starting today in recognition of the important work that they are doing to address homelessness and poverty around our region. It's really great to have so many of you here today, and we really appreciate you taking your time to be here. One of the first things we did after starting All Home in 2019 was to create the RIC and work together with many of you to develop the original Regional Action Plan, which came out in 2021. The original RAP and its 124 framework for homelessness solutions provided the framework that has animated much of All Home's work and the RIC's work for the last 3 years. The RIC also developed the Big Moves for Housing and Economic Security in late 2022, a long-term policy agenda to disrupt the root causes of homelessness and poverty. After creating these two plans, we restructured the organization to focus on implementing them. In 3 years, our team has grown, we've learned a lot, we've partnered with many of you, and our region has made some progress, but not nearly enough progress. The original RAP set a goal of reducing unsheltered homelessness by 75% in 3 years, But try as we might, working with many of you, we didn't actually get every player in every county or the state or federal government, for that matter, to do what it would have taken to achieve that ambitious goal. So we wanted to update the plan, to share some of what we've learned, to share what you have shared with us, and get even clearer on what it will take to meaningfully address homelessness in the Bay Area. Now this updated wrap includes new tools to help the region plan and coordinate solutions to make homelessness rare, brief, and one time. Carla Javits and Adrian Gonzalez will get into that in just a moment. First, I want to say a bit about what it means to be on the RIC in 2024. You're all here because you are important leaders working on homelessness and poverty across the 9 Bay Area counties. This is a space to engage with your peers from around the region on housing and economic policy, to learn from each other, and be activated as change agents, working to strengthen the systems that people with extremely low incomes rely upon to be able to stay and thrive in the Bay Area. You are best positioned to help make this plan a reality in every county in the region. Before we end the meeting, we'll be asking you some polling questions, so please stick around for that. It's going to take courage, political will, and hard work, but this plan shows that it's possible to make homelessness rare, brief, and one time. Now, please join me in welcoming longtime housing, homelessness, and workforce leader, RIC co-chair, and all-around terrific person, Carla Javits will say more about this. Carla?
Thank you so much, Ken. I'm really happy to be here today. Lucky enough to co-chair the RIC with some other very terrific people. For those of you who don't know me, I've been involved in this issue for a very long time as CEO of the Corporation for Supportive Housing, and first bringing the corporation to California, and then for the last 17 years with Red F working on social enterprises that employ people who have been homeless and justice impacted. So I do indeed care deeply about this issue. And I'm excited to just very quickly give you a sense of what's in the updated wrap. The wrap is obviously a critical tool for this group. We have very ambitious goals, and for them to be doable, we need to be very concrete and specific and detailed about what it's going to take to achieve these very big goals. So that's what the updated wrap attempts to do. And, you know, we think that being very clear about what we need to build, where, and how much it might cost will add the kind of urgency and credibility to our efforts that will make them really happen. The wrap has not changed in the sense that we still emphasize concurrent solutions and the same 3 concurrent solutions, but we've de-emphasized, for those of you who have been around for a while, the 1, 2, 4 part of the framework, the way we've been talking about it. Our new goal is functional zero homelessness and milestones for reducing unsheltered homelessness along the way. What does functional zero mean? Functional zero does not mean homelessness completely disappears forever. It means that cities and counties have effective response systems that can serve people in a timely way, whether they're at risk of eviction, e.g. prevention, or already unhoused. And as we work toward functional zero homelessness, clearly, I think we all know we have to diminish the stark racial disparities in who experiences homelessness. These inequities are not just symptoms of a bigger problem. They are part of what's driving increasing and just the levels of homelessness that we have. So if we succeed in reducing homelessness, but continue to see the same level of racial disparities, our work would definitely not be done. The core approach of the plan is that each part of the region has to expand 3 solutions at the same time, all at the same time. 1, targeted homelessness prevention to reduce the number of people in need, because we'll never get homelessness under control. We can see it from the numbers if we don't slow it down. Permanent housing, 2nd, whether that's affordable units that might offer supportive services, e.g. supportive housing, or expanded rental assistance to make housing more affordable, a range of options there. because ultimately homes solve homelessness. We need interim housing to give people safe, stable places to come indoors and heal from being unhoused while they get connected to a permanent home. The sidewalk just can't be a waiting room for a proper and decent place to live. In addition, I think critically, this update of the RAP emphasizes the importance of stronger planning and coordination, which we're trying to support as an organization, in order for counties, cities, service providers, and other stakeholders to effectively respond. We have to have the systems in place to actually get this work done. And then I am particularly excited that this updated RAP includes 2 new tools. One is a RAP solutions dashboard. This is pretty incredible, that allows anybody to see the necessary mix of prevention, interim housing, and permanent housing it will take, and the associated costs to reduce unsheltered homelessness by 25, 50, or 75%. We have never had a tool like this. And I think it's incredibly exciting that we've got it and that we put it together. I think it's going to be really useful for holding ourselves accountable and for planning. And then second, a support card, a tool to help guide and evaluate local governments' efforts to make their homelessness response systems more effective. We're going to try to, apply the support card principles to help cities and counties, perhaps incentivize cities and counties to improve coordination, foster accountability, and improve outcomes for people experiencing homelessness. So we're really excited about this new version of the RAP. I think it's going to be even more useful than the first version. And for more details about our new tools with compliments to All Home for all the work we've done on this, the whole group, I'm going to pass this to Adrian.
Good morning, everyone. For those of you who have not had the pleasure of working with yet, my name is Adrian Gonzalez, Deputy Chief of Programs here at All Home. And this morning, I will be giving us all a briefing and walkthrough of our solutions modeling and dashboard. To visualize what it will take to build an effective homelessness response system, the new RAP Solutions dashboard estimates the 3 core solutions and additional funding needed to reduce unsheltered homelessness by 25, 50, and 75% on the path towards achieving functional zero homelessness. With this tool, we now have goals and cost estimates for the entire region and for each county. This takes an ambitious plan and helps us bring it down to earth. We created the RAP solutions modeling to educate our government partners and the public on what it will actually take to make substantial reductions in homelessness, and to show that these goals are within reach. As you may have saw in our email blast this morning, the dashboard is now live online on our website. The presentation of the dashboard is here to help us visualize how the investments into the 3 core solutions impact each other. At the top end, users have the ability to look at this data analysis either through a regional lens or just really focusing on a specific county. Next, users are able to focus in on the end goal of reducing unsheltered homelessness either by 25, 50, or 75%. And then lastly, users can change the rate at which we assume we can prevent new homelessness every year through the modeling. In the top right-hand corner, I want to first bring your attention this table titled Inventory Added and Total Costs. This table displays the total number of new units or interventions added to reach the unsheltered reduction target, along with its associated costs. Users can choose to look at this through either a 5 or 10-year landscape, and to demonstrate to you all kind of the importance of targeted prevention and how it impacts and correlates with the needs for interim and permanent housing, I want to demonstrate what happens through this modeling scenario when we adjust our assumption around prevention of new homelessness and increase it from 15% to 25%. We see a substantial reduction in the need for interim housing, permanent housing solutions, and the related costs. As a reminder, these are additional investments on top of what is currently being allocated in the region. In addition to the summary table, to the left, we have projected homelessness trends, wherein through our modeling, you can see, based on our estimates, the number of people we anticipate who will be experiencing unsheltered homelessness relative to the number of people accessing shelter services and exiting the system into permanent housing solutions based on our modeling scenario. For additional context, at the bottom, in the bottom left, we have new interim housing needed, which provides more detail specifically on the interim housing solution. And based on the variables users can change at the top, look at our projections of new interim housing units that may be needed on top of our existing capacity by year. And then lastly, on the bottom right, we have new annual costs by program, where users can look at by intervention, total costs, either in aggregate or broken out by capital or operations and expenditures through the 5 and 10-year modeling scenario. We will continue to work with our government partners to uplift the importance of using data to inform budgeting, planning, and coordination, and hope that you use this dashboard as a tool for education, advocacy, and accountability. Next, we are also unveiling our support card framework, a tool we've created to help guide and evaluate jurisdictions' planning and coordination efforts. While the solutions modeling helps us to visualize the magnitude of homelessness and the resources we need to respond, the support card helps us to build a cohesive system. Strong planning and coordination is the foundation that enables counties, continuums of care, cities, and other stakeholders to effectively respond to homelessness. And it puts us in a stronger position to make the best possible use of funding and resources as they become available. There's been a lot of talk lately about accountability when it comes to homelessness. We hear it from the governor's office, from recent state auditors' reports, and every local partner we work with wants results. And that's why we also built the support card to help us align policies with recent calls for accountability we've seen over the last few years. But local governments also need guidance and resources to put the right structures in place. That's why in this regional action plan update, we call on the state and federal governments to better coordinate programs, policies, and funding, and provide more guidance and technical assistance to local jurisdictions trying to braid these programs together into a coherent system. Expectations should also be reasonable and proportional. You can't give a nurse a Band-Aid and expect them to fix a broken arm. On the other hand, the support card puts our technical assistance in the hands of every stakeholder in the region who wants to do what they can to strengthen their planning and coordination efforts. Similar to the dashboard, the support card framework is now live up on our website and accessible to everyone. The support card is organized around 4 core elements: leadership, coordination, accountability, and resources. Each element includes a number of guiding principles that describe policies, programs, and practices that strengthen planning and coordination within a homelessness response system. Subsequently, each guiding principle has 1 or more evaluative questions to help local governments assess progress in implementing these policies and practices. We understand that implementing these policies and practices can look different from county to county. So here at All Home, we continue to offer pro bono technical assistance to Bay Area counties and cities seeking to strengthen their homelessness planning and coordination efforts. Our team meets with their jurisdiction where you are, helps to assess relevant policies and practices, and works alongside your team to implement the support card principles. Of course, Local leaders, particularly those within government, can also go through the support card with your staff, evaluate where policies stand, and take steps to align with the principles. We strongly believe that following the support card's guidance will improve the effectiveness of any homelessness response system and set them up for success as they work to continue implementing the concurrent solutions laid out in the RAP. At this time, I'll now pass the floor to Ken to facilitate Q&A.
Great. And I'll start off helping from the chat. We've got some good juicy questions about where the data comes from. So as I mentioned, well, you could talk about, there's a whole methodology report on the website, on the page where the dashboard is. And Aaron Gilbert asked a question about the inventory added box. Does that use existing inventory as a foundation? Or is the box showing additional units we need? And how often will we update the back end data? And where are you getting all this data from? So a few good questions in there.
Adrian, why don't you are the data expert, so why don't you dive in?
Data nerd.
I didn't say that.
Team of data nerds here. No. I think many of us here are.
Nerd is a term of endearment on this call.
That's right. So the premise of the solutions modeling is focused on understanding the unmet need. So as Edie did mention at the bottom of the website, we do have our methodology report, which it goes into more substantive detail of all the variables we use and the pathways of our assumptions. But to focus in on clarifying what this is, it is estimating the additional inventory we need for the Bay Area. Some of the variables, like interim housing I showed, do incorporate current stock that we have access to through publicly available records. But some of these data points are not easily found through public records. And so that's why we also chose to focus on understanding the unmet need, because we do have data through the PIT count and through HMIS system performance measures to understand inflow, outflow, as well as people who are currently experiencing unsheltered homelessness. I could walk through the whole methodologies report, and that could be a whole separate hour-long meeting. But I encourage you to take a look at it, and our team is available to answer any other specific questions about data points, sourcing, and methodology.
Are there other, I think you covered, Adrian, a lot of it was in the chat. Are there other questions that people have, and you can simply just raise your hand and we'll try to answer your question. Scrolling through, lots of faces and names. Here we go. In the chat, can the tool be used to look at needs for specific populations, for example, for youth?
So based on our positioning as a third-party organization, having limited access to data that HMIS systems have in-house that aren't always publicly available, we chose to build a system that can be scalable, that can be used across the region, using reliable data points that are publicly accessible. And so especially when we get to looking at subpopulations, a lot of that data is not always consistently present in a public way, but also we choose to use this framework to really first help governments understand their system capacity and unmet need in a broad way. And of course, when you look from county to county, city to city, the needs of the subpopulations are going to be very different. And so the point of this tool is to first help to point out that question of capacity, how much need we need to plan for through our resources and organizational structuring. And that should help to facilitate ongoing conversations as well, based on your community and your jurisdiction, what the specific needs are for subpopulations. But of course, through our technical assistance, All Home does help jurisdictions in interpreting and using this data and helping to convene and facilitate conversations around program administration.
Great, thank you, Adrian. It looks like we have everyone's questions or now. As Adrian said, if questions come up as you dive into the plan, please reach out to us directly. We're happy to engage with you moving forward and answer your questions. So as we transition here, one of the things we'd like to do is to share our outreach toolkit with you all. We're hoping, and I believe Edie's going to put that in the chat, we're hoping that you will use this, pass it along in your networks. If you have comms people at your organization, please hand it to them. It's really, really important that we push the plan out across the full network of the Regional Impact Council. And there it is. Deanna put it in there. So please share that. It looks like we do now have another question. And it's another
think that would
dashboard
be-
question.
Is that Jackie Downing who is asking the role and best use of philanthropic dollars?
Well, yes, it is.
I thought so.
Well,
Well,
I
will just say,
Go ahead, Brett.
from the top, the highest and best use, I believe, of philanthropic dollars for many of our organizations that are often funded through government funding. While we're appreciative of government funding, it can be restrictive. And so in the continued conversations that we have with our donors, and as we cultivate institutional and individual donors along the way, we ask for as much flexibility in the use of those dollars as possible. It's very much like the position that All Home takes is that we have concurrent solutions, and so all dollars are welcome, but as broadly as we can use them for the purposes of advancing solutions to homelessness, all the better for that.
Yes, absolutely. And we have found that targeted homelessness prevention is something that is highly effective. People across the political spectrum in the Bay Area support it and kind of see it as common sense, and yet it is one of the solutions. It is the solution that is arguably the least funded in terms of dedicated funding, and All Home has raised resources for this. That's how we've been able to partner with cities and counties around the region to have pilot targeted homelessness prevention programs. So we certainly welcome philanthropic dollars to further those efforts. With that, we can transition to the next speaker. It looks like we've covered the questions for now. And again, if you have questions moving forward, please reach out to us directly. Is Supervisor Belia Ramos here? Well, she's been running from a Board of Supervisors meeting in Napa, and it might be a little bit late. I think what we will do is have Irving Torres of our staff jump in to provide an overview of the Regional Affordable Housing Bond as a stand-in for Belia, and if the supervisor arrives, and she'll jump right in. Irving?
Sounds good. Thanks, Ken. Good morning, everyone. My name is Irving Torres. I'm the Director of Regional Engagement here at All Home. I've been very actively involved in this Regional Affordable Housing Bond because this is a once-in-a-generational opportunity. But more personally, as a person that was born and raised in the Bay Area, I have faced housing insecurity, my family and I. Moving from place to place, it was a struggle. And I've shared with the folks that, what got me towards my success in terms of earning a college degree and working for an amazing organization like All Home is the housing stability. And so this is an opportunity that we have for here in the Bay Area. The Bay is a wealthy region, but has unacceptable levels of widespread poverty, homelessness, and housing insecurity. And as shown by the Regional Action Plan, concurrent investments is a solution, which includes that prevention, building, and preserving permanent and interim housing. And the Bay Area Housing Finance Authority, so regional bond, is our opportunity to do this and provide. And I'm going to share with you the overview of the bond. With this bond, the 9 counties are proposing this $20 billion affordable housing bond in this upcoming November 2024 ballot. And ABAG voted unanimously in April to place the bond on the November ballot. And tomorrow, the MTC, the BAFA Executive Board, is going to take that final vote. So in addition to the bond, we need to also pass ACA 10, which is going to lower the threshold for infrastructure and housing bonds to 55%. And it's going to be important for the regional housing bond and future local housing and infrastructure bonds. And so in closing, passing this bond will be investing in affordable housing to scale for the first time. Touch on the importance of providing homes, dignity to people regardless of circumstances. And so I hope that you can all join me in taking this important step to support the bond. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irving. And I'm happy to report that Supervisor Ramos is in the room.
Good morning, everyone.
Welcome, Belia.
Thank you so much. Did you want me to get started? I'm a little bit early.
You can dive right in. We're happy to have you
Excellent.
here.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And good morning to all of our housing advocates in the Bay Area. When I think about and reflect about where we're at, this has been a long time coming. It's been seven years since the CASA Compact vote that got us started on this trajectory, but really it was vision before that has gotten us to this point. And I want to reflect on those successes, and many of you have been in this room. I know I see a lot of people who I've had many conversations with about the importance of us coming together, coalescing, and being able to speak in one voice as to what our region needs. And what I'm most proud of is how we have done this in a thoughtful and in a collaborative way of having open communications of really where our pressure points are, what we have to do politically, and what we have to do strategically to get us to this point. So first, I want to start off with gratitude. Second, and I heard Irving a little bit speak. You stole my thunder. I want to start off with our tremendous success at the Association of Bay Area Governments Executive Board meeting on April 18th. The fact that we were able to receive a unanimous vote, I can honestly say, if you saw that meeting, I was remotely in Sacramento because of another obligation with a few other of my colleagues, and I had tears in my eyes. And I had tears in my eyes because I know firsthand, as someone who has experienced housing insecurity with my children, that we need this. We need this overall. We not only do we need to work on the affordability of housing through BAFA, but the production of BAFA in and of itself will help the supply. So for that, I am incredibly grateful that we have so many of our elected leaders that have risen to this occasion to meet this moment, and what that means in going forward. And there's been a lot of work since then, right? April 18th was just really that it got the ball rolling to get us to where we need to go. It's not dissimilar from bowling, where you get the right ball, you've got it in hand, and you pull the ball back to get that momentum and start going. And so we are making our way. So I'm hoping for a full strike for November, but in order to get there, we've got a lot of work in the meantime. And so Irving had mentioned that tomorrow's vote at BAFA, 9:35 call for BAFA on item 7C. It's the actual call to the election for the $20 billion general obligation bond. And I think that this is important. ABAG sent the message to BAFA and to say, 10 billion, that's great, right? If we do 10, if we do 20 billion, that's great. But the significance here is that the polling is not different. It is not measurably different, that we shouldn't find that, not on my side, the political courage to be able to say 20 billion is what we need. And we know that even with 20 billion, we won't meet our entire needs, right? We're not going to solve homelessness and housing insecurity overall, but boy, are we going to make some great strides. When you look at the potential of the production of 36,000 units, when you look at just in my county, right? I'm so incredibly proud to have Napa County be one of our Bay Area counties that had a drop in their PIT count from January, right? A 17% drop in our PIT count, but how did we get there? We got there from tremendous investments in permanent supportive housing, of opening units, of changing over some of our hotels and motels into actual permanent supportive housing. That takes money, folks. This is exactly what BAFA is going to get us. We need to be able to have that courage to say 20 billion is our starting point of what we need. And I say starting point because those that have been involved from the beginning understand that by taking this model that was from New York City, where essentially, I've said this, I'm sure that at some point, the Wells Fargos and the Bank of Americas are going to have it out for me, but I've said, I want to put them out of business when it comes to affordable housing. Shareholders have no business making money off of affordable housing. Affordable housing is a dignity that everybody is entitled to, every single person in the Bay Area. And I do not want the banks making money off that. If they would like to be so generous on a philanthropic side and to be partners with us, great, we'll take your money. But BAFA needs to be the end all be all here when it comes to financing. And there is more than enough for everyone to go around. Let the banks be involved in market rate housing. But when it comes to affordable housing, we as this private and public partnership need to be able to fund that and say that this is what we stand for, right? That the Bay Area needs to be the leader here, where we can say we will self-help as 9 Bay Area and 101 cities, 9 Bay Area counties and 101 cities. We will self-help, and we will meet this moment on making sure that we're going to prioritize first production, then our preservation and our protections, that we're going to make sure that we give, everyone screams about local control. Guess what? 80% return to source. We got you on the local control. We are going to let every jurisdiction decide what you think is best for your jurisdiction. Right? No one needs to come into Napa and build tons and tons of housing. I've got 417 people to house, and those people are going to need permanent supportive housing solutions. So I need to be able to have that flexibility. And that is in fact what these expenditure plans are going to do. I'm incredibly proud to be at this place right now where, when you think about, if you go back to that CASA compact vote, and somewhere, I know, Ken, you were in the room, and I had some choice words to, I chose my words quite carefully that evening to share what this meant for me as a single mom, as a lawyer, as a professor, as an elected official. We all know All Home did the work through the 1-2-2-4 plan. We know that it takes one event, one catastrophic event that starts that cycle of homelessness, of housing insecurity. I experienced that. Mine was separation and divorce. And if it weren't because I had family, and if it weren't because I had the financial means, I would have been stuck in that cycle. And so it has become my life's work to take my experience that is nothing compared to the people who don't have family support, who don't have a foundation to fall back to, and who don't have the financial means to be able to get themselves out of this, to work for the last 7 years at ABAG to arrive at that unanimous decision. It's all of you that helped us get there, those conversations when you are nudging those voting members. It means something. It means something because you're connected to the work, and we just have to find the political courage. And I've said this during COVID, we all had excess political courage to be able to say, yep, let's put everyone into a hotel room. Let's get them housed. Let's make sure we keep people safe. Why? Because the fear of our unhoused becoming infected with COVID became our fear of spread. That's why we found it, right? We make big, bold decisions out of fear. And so we found political courage at that time. And I said this at the executive board, we need to tap into that courage that we found in COVID. And I am so proud to say that we in fact have. I feel like we have channeled that exact political courage during COVID to get us to this point. Tomorrow is a really, really important day at BAFA. Be in the room, make the calls, lean on those supervisors and council members that maybe have some questions, maybe have some insecurities. Be there to back them up, right? Especially those people that are going to have November elections, be there to back them up. And I'm saying that with my political hat on. It's not easy to meet this moment when we might have a room of haters, waiting for us outside. The other thing I will say is, beyond that, Thursday is a really incredible moment for us. Again, the success of BAFA is not going to be without its compatible ACA. And while I'm incredibly grateful to have ACA 1 and its retroactivity applied to BAFA, we now know through the polling that we need ACA 10. Through many discussions with Majority Leader Assemblymember Aguiar Curry, I'm really glad that we got to the point where she found the political courage to bring this to the assembly vote, to push this through in record timing with the passage off the assembly floor on Monday. We need ACA 10 to be passing the Senate on Thursday. So again, tap into your elected officials, tap into your network, and let's make sure that we have a win tomorrow at BAFA. Let's make sure we have a win at the Senate floor on Thursday. And really, at the end of the day, you're going to change the course of history. That's what we're all doing here. If we can lift up BAFA from the ground up and get this passed in November, we have set the model for the rest of the state of California. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing, and thank you for accommodating my schedule with the board meeting. And I look forward to working with all of you for a November win.
Supervisor Ramos, thank you so much. As somebody who was in the room back at ABAG, what seems like a long, long time ago when the CASA Compact was voted on, I saw you move that board. And hearing you speak just now, you give me every confidence that we're going to win in November. It's fantastic that you are a leader in this effort, and you're a true gem. So thank you so much for being here. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you.
I'm going to talk briefly about how the Regional Affordable Housing Bond Measure aligns with the RAP's goals for the three concurrent solutions that are central to the plan. It says if on my notes, but when voters approve this bond in November, it will be a huge down payment on the homelessness solutions our region needs, especially when it comes to building deeply affordable housing. The bond could potentially pay for all of the construction costs for the new affordable and permanent supportive housing that our solutions modeling shows is needed across the region. These new units will have rents affordable to people with extremely low incomes or below 30% AMI. As many of you know, the only limiting factor is that a lot of this type of housing, which we desperately need, requires additional operating and services subsidies that bond funds cannot be used for because of state law. We call out the need for this funding in the plan, and we will work with all of you to secure it moving forward. Throughout the Bay Area, cities and counties see the pressing need to prioritize building more homes that people with ELI and VLI can afford, and the prioritization is written into the enabling legislation for BAFA. Preservation of existing affordable housing is an incredibly important strategy because it keeps existing housing affordable and saves otherwise very vulnerable tenants from the risk of eviction and displacement. At least 15% of the total bond funds will be used for preservation. Bond funds can be used to lock in affordable rents on naturally occurring affordable housing and to extend affordability guarantees on homes where it would otherwise expire. There are a number of different innovations that the regional housing bond will provide us with. If the bond is approved, local jurisdictions could acquire land for permanent housing and use the site for certain types of interim housing while plans for permanent affordable housing are developed and approved. And Supervisor Ramos made reference to the New York City Housing Development Corporation, which was the model for BAFA. Similarly, BAFA will also be able to reinvest interest and fees from the loans it will make using bond funds to test, implement, and support a wider range of programs to keep people housed, including homelessness prevention and tenant protections. And BAFA actually has a prevention pilot running right now in Napa County. I would now like to turn it over to my colleague and friend, Justine Marcus of Enterprise Community Partners and one of the leaders in the Bay Area Housing for All Coalition, who will walk us through what we need to do between now and November. Justine?
Thanks, Ken. I'm really pleased to be here with all of you and to, I think, really just follow and echo what others have shared. I love the timing of this event because, as others have mentioned, it's a really big week for the opportunity that we have in front of us. I work for Enterprise Community Partners. We're one of the kind of core coordinating groups on this regional effort alongside All Home, NPH, Nonprofit Housing Association of Northern California, and the San Francisco Foundation. As Supervisor Ramos shared, tomorrow is a real milestone coming up for the regional bond. And not only does that mean that we will officially have our regional bond on the ballot, but it also really marks an inflection point in the work that we're going to be doing on the community side to support our success at the ballot. So after tomorrow, that's where we really see the shift coming to focus on ramping up our actual campaign, right? We're moving from coalition mode to campaign mode. And that will, take us until election day, but the next few months will really focus on, building the coalition structure. We'll be hiring a campaign manager. We'll be focused on getting endorsements, building the big tent coalition that we need. And then, into the fall, it'll look like your kind of traditional campaign with, phone banking and mailers and advertisements and all that good stuff. And so I'm excited to kind of talk about this with all of you because we are really going to need everyone at the table, everyone kind of putting their elbow grease into this effort, whatever that looks like for you and for your organization. And there's a lot of ways to do that. So that might look like helping on fundraising. That might look like helping with phone banking. It might look like grassroots organizing, helping with communications. Certainly, first and foremost, and I'll talk about this in a minute, it should start with endorsing the bond, but there are a lot of ways that folks can engage as an organization or as an individual on your own time. And so, coming out of this kind of inspiring session today, I would ask folks to really take some time to talk amongst your organization about how do we want to show up in this work? What would that look like for us? And that's something that, then I would really encourage folks to reach out to me, reach out to Ken and the All Home team to talk more about how to plug in. And I know that many of you on this call I can see on the participant list are already knee deep in that. So thank you to all of you. We've got some of our county leads on the call and other partners. So you all are awesome. And we need to bring more folks into the fold and ramp up the work that we're doing. Let me go to the next slide, please. We have a kind of 4 interconnected goals with the campaign phase of this work. Of course, the kind of banner goal here is around unlocking the funding that we need and that broader systems change. Supervisor Ramos mentioned the kind of New York model and the ability for BAFA to really become a lender in the space. But it's also about coalition building, working across sectors, building those strong relationships with partners. It's also an opportunity to invest in our grassroots organizations and grassroots organizing around housing, which we know continues to be a resident issue with individuals across the 9 counties. And it's an opportunity to build towards kind of our longer term housing agenda with racial equity at the center. So we're going to kind of get to our call to action, and I'm going to, again, just be echoing Supervisor Ramos and the points that she was making, which is that this week is big for 2 reasons. We've got action happening at the state level, ACA 10, championed by Assemblymember Aguiar Curry. This is what I like to say, you know, if BAFA is the key, it's like ACA 10 is the lock that we need to use the key on. Like, we need to lower that voter threshold so that it is feasible for the BAFA measure to be successful. We got it through the assembly yesterday. We'll all be back on Thursday to get it through the Senate. And if you have relationships with senators, now's the time to shoot them a text, give them a call, and really underscore why this is so important for it to pass and for it to pass now. And then tomorrow we have our key vote. So what can you do between getting off this call and maybe even just the end of the week? You can go to the next slide. The first thing you can do is endorse the measure yourself. So if you go to BayAreaHousingForAll.org, you'll be able to endorse as an individual or as an organization. So far, we have 168 elected officials and counting that have endorsed, and over 1,200 individuals. So let's help get those numbers up even higher. And think about, are there other groups, other individuals that you know that you work with that you think would be interested? There's also kind of some helpful one-pagers and information online to share with others. And then the second really important call to action is what I mentioned, is to take some time, you know, talk at your next staff meeting, talk to your supervisor, talk to your team about how do we want to show up in this campaign? What are the roles that are, you know, most appropriate for us? And then come back to myself, come back to Ken, folks on the NPH team to talk about how to plug in a way that makes sense for you all. So I think I'll stop there and we'll open it up for any questions or comments that folks have.
Yeah, thanks, Justine. Folks can put their questions in the chat or just raise your hand. And also want to thank Lindsay of EBHO and Annie of Spur and others who've put remarks in the chat and express their support. Do we have any questions on the bond or ACA 10? Mark has a question. Is there a messaging guidance doc that you've distributed?
Question. We have a one-pager, kind of hybrid one-pager and FAQ that's on the Bay Area Housing for All website. I feel like that's a good first place to go. If you're in conversations where you're being asked kind of a next level of questions, we have some additional materials that we can also share. And Edie's also just shared in the chat a piece that All Home put out that is specifically focused around the intersection of the bond and reducing and preventing homelessness, which has some really excellent kind of talking points and just good information in there as well.
Got it. So the reason hi, Mark Jones, they them pronouns. I'm the new policy director for the Benioff Homelessness and Housing Initiative at UCSF. We don't endorse and we don't lobby, but we can cleave close to messaging. And so it would be really helpful if there was like not just general talking points, but like something that was maybe a touch more sophisticated with regard to like what are the sort of key points to be driving home in our touch points with legislators around data, right? That's what they come to us for, is what's true, what's not true. And so it'd be really helpful to understand, like, what should we be underscoring there? I think the other thing that I'm thinking around messaging is increasingly, like, we have, for better or worse, depending on the day, a lot of social media happening. And so again, thinking about, like, what are the things that would be helpful for us to be underscoring in the lead up to an eventual vote, right? As you know, people interact with our stuff. And thanks. It's good to be here in the Bay with everybody.
Thanks, Mark. I will take that back to folks on our team who are more on the comms and the campaign building side. That's great feedback. I think that's something we always want to hear from folks, are like, what are the tools that you need to go out and be an ambassador for this work, again, in the way that kind of fits your organization and your role. So I've made a note of that one. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. We're happy to have you here. And Edie did drop some specific information that we created relative to how the bond will support homelessness efforts. So that's something I think everybody on this call will probably find helpful. Let's see. Annie, you had another message about the outreach toolkit, which we're hoping you'll all use. Are there other questions that folks have? All right. Well, seeing none, we are going to look ahead. Thank you so much, Justine. I want to thank all of the speakers who've been here today. We really want to thank members of the Regional Action Plan Update Advisory Committee. That group met several times over the course of the spring. And members of that committee were really the foundation for why we did the wrap. When we went back out last summer and talked with a lot of our RIC-related partners to ask them how things were going in the region, what their experience had been since the wrap was released, we heard on the positive side of things that there was increasing support for concurrent solutions and increased understanding of the need for targeted prevention, interim housing, and permanent housing simultaneously. But there was not nearly enough resources available. And so with our partners, we embarked on this plan, and we're really, really appreciative of the work they put into it, as well as members of the RIC steering committee. We're really excited to reconvene the Regional Impact Council. This is going to be super important for our work going forward. These two items, the updated plan and the regional bond, these next several months are really, really important for our work. As Supervisor Ramos mentioned, we have the opportunity to change the game on homelessness in our region. This is arguably a once in a generation opportunity. Those of us who've been working on it for a lot of years certainly feel that way. We would love your involvement. We appreciate you being here. We'll have at least 2 more meetings this year, and we'll also convene on a quarterly basis going forward. And to get the most out of these meetings, we'd like to know what you're interested in discussing and learning about.